So once you did the Bakersfield project, you say to Paul, "Let's do it again," or 10 years later?
To me, I don't think we ever intended that much time to pass before we did another record. I always had so many artists in mind to continue to do this, to make it a series of sorts, and we landed on Ray Price to do this next one. And with Bakersfield, it's interesting because that record was more guitar driven in a way, steel guitar driven, obviously, but because Buck was a great guitar player, Merle was a great guitar player, you had Don Rich, you had Roy Nichols, you had James Burton, you had all these elements of great instrumentation, and the freedom with recreating some of these songs is there's nothing more unappealing to me than a sound-alike record where everybody just apes the same record, plays the same licks, and all that. I said we can try to admire what's been done, but not, it doesn't prove anything if you just do that again. And so you use the spirit of it and then play like you play. And at no point was the intention to think we could hang with the originals, or we're not trying to do better versions of these great classics or whatever. We just love it so much that here's our spin, and sadly, when you watch people react to a record like this, or they see you sing together again, which is not as good as the original. I prefer, it's like, who's the best basketball player of all time? Somebody always has to say who the best is. Like, I don't care who the best is. I think great is great is great is great. And that to me is the whole point of these records is with Ray, you couldn't not be a fan. It was, there were elements of this music of periods of time that I loved more than others. Not that the ones that I didn't like as much weren't great, they were. But his earliest records were not unlike what Buck and Merle were doing when they did it years later. It has so much more beer joint in it than it did, that cosmopolitan kind of big, broad singer, smooth, kind of thing. I liked it, but not near as much as the beer joint sound side of stuff. And those early days of the Ray Price records were, to me, as defining of how good, of what this music is. People would say, what would you define as country music? I'd say, listen to a Merle Haggard song or listen to an early Ray Price song. And it still holds true.